Hello friends, welcome to Shadow Whisperer. All you see is darkness, just the sound of rain. Designed to help you relax, focus on the story, and drift into sleep. But before you do, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And yes, feel free to share where you're listening from in the comments. Now, let's begin. My dad was named Peter. He had a big laugh that filled up our whole house from the front door all the way to the backyard. He worked a simple job at a shipping place, but he always came home happy, with dirt on his pants and a smile on his face. He had hands that felt like wood, big and strong from all the work he did, but they were also the softest hands when he held my mom or when he ruffled my hair. I felt safe when he was around. My mom was named Sarah. She made the best cookies in the whole wide world. They smelled like a warm hug and tasted like a sunny day. She had a little bakery she made just in our kitchen, and people in our town of Wexfield would line up for them on Saturdays. She had light brown hair that always had a little flower on it. She would sing little songs to herself while she worked, and her voice was like the sound of a little bell ringing far away. It was a happy sound. I was 10 years old back then. I was a little boy who asked a lot of questions about everything. I wanted to know how everything worked, from the old clock in our kitchen to the big moon in the sky. I was always right by my dad's side. I was his little helper, just a tiny shadow that followed him around. I would hand him tools when he fixed things and hold the flashlight when he looked under the car. That night feels so far away now. It feels like a story I heard a long time ago, a dream I had, but I can still hear the sound of us laughing inside the car, just the three of us. The sound echoes in my head, bouncing off the street signs. It's a happy sound, and it lives in a place deep inside my heart that still feels like it's 10 years old. It's the last happy sound I remember. It was a rare late night for us. We had just eaten dinner at my dad's best friend Leon's house. Leon was a big man with a round belly and a laugh as big as my dad's. He was really funny and told old jokes from when he and my dad were in college. The grown-ups laughed a lot and the house was full of happy noise. It smelled like warm food and old wood. Leon's wife, Maria, gave me a big bowl of ice cream with a lot of sprinkles on top. I remember falling asleep in the back of our old Ford Taurus. The car was a bit rusty, but it was our car. I was still holding a toy airplane that Leon had given me. It was red and had little plastic wheels. I woke up right when Dad turned the car onto Penwood Street. The headlights cut through the dark night, showing the quiet houses on the side of the road. It was past 11 at night, and the car was warm and soft, like a bed. That turn onto Penwood Street was the last time I would ever see my dad alive. I didn't know it then. I was just a sleepy kid with a new red toy airplane. I just wanted to go home and play with it in the morning. The street was really dark. All the street lights were out, like someone had turned them off on purpose, one by one. The moon was hiding behind the clouds. There was only the light of our car. My mom said something funny. She said, "Looks like Penwood's getting spooky on us again." She was smiling when she said it, and her voice was light. She wasn't really scared. My dad laughed. He said, "Don't you worry, I'm the scariest thing out here." He was just a big man with a good heart who thought that was a funny joke. He was trying to make my mom feel safe, but it wasn't funny a second later. It all happened so fast, like someone hit a fast-forward button on the world. I heard a loud bang from the front of the car. It wasn't like a tire popping. It was more like heavy metal hitting heavy metal, a sound that snapped me all the way awake. It felt like a punch in my stomach. The car shook. I dropped my airplane on the floor of the car. My dad slammed his foot on the brakes. The car stopped right in the middle of the road. He looked worried now. He wasn't laughing anymore. He was trying to figure out what happened. That's when I saw them. 4 men came out of the dark. They stepped out from the shadows on the side of the road with hoodies pulled up over their heads. The little light from our car caught their faces. I could just see their faces in the dim light. They looked like they were hiding. Their eyes were like little black holes. They had no light in them at all. One of the men had a big chain wrapped around his arm, heavy and thick. It rattled a little as he moved. Another man was dragging a crowbar across the sidewalk. I could hear the crowbar scraping, a long, ugly sound, like a nail on a chalkboard. It made my teeth hurt. They didn't say anything at first. They just stared at our car, like a snake stares at a mouse. They walked slowly, like they had all the time in the world. They moved around the car, getting closer to us. They were like a pack of hungry wolves looking at a scared deer. They moved without a sound, like ghosts. It felt like a long time, but it was probably only a few seconds. Every beat of my heart felt like it took forever. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. "Just stay calm," my dad said in a low voice. His voice was different now, not his happy voice. He put the car in park. I could see his hands on the steering wheel. They were big and strong, but they were shaking just a little bit. "It's just a robbery. I'll give them what they want." He was trying to be brave. He was trying to protect us. I could see it in the way he sat up straight and looked at the men. He opened the car door. He put his hands up slowly. He wanted them to know he wasn't a threat. He was just a man, trying to keep his family safe. My mom shouted from the front seat. Her voice was high and tight, like a rope pulled too hard. "Peter, no. Let's just drive away. Please." She was scared. I could see her hands covering her mouth, but it was too late. One of the men was already there. He yanked my dad out of the car. It happened so fast. My dad's feet left the ground for a second. One of the men punched my dad hard in his stomach. I saw him double over, and he made a sound like the air was being punched out of him. It was a short, sharp gasp. Another man grabbed the collar of my dad's shirt. He slammed my dad's head against the front of the car. The metal hood made a hollow sound like an empty box being hit. It was a terrible sound. The man with the crowbar swung it low. It came from behind my dad. I heard a sound like a small tree branch snapping. It was a crack, loud and sharp. My father screamed. It was a sound I never thought a man could make. It was the sound of a person who was broken, a sound that had no words, only pain. It was the sound that changed everything for me. My mom jumped out of the car. She was screaming, a high, panicked sound. She ran over to my dad and stood over him to try and shield him with her own body. She was yelling, "Take my purse. Take everything. Just take it." She didn't care about the money. She just wanted them to stop hurting her husband. She loved him more than anything, but they weren't there for money. They were there for something else. I could tell by the way they moved. They were wild. Their eyes looked crazy, like they weren't even seeing us, just the bad things they wanted to do. They were laughing, too. They thought it was funny. I think they were on drugs, maybe something like meth. They looked like they were having a party, and we were just the toys they were playing with. It wasn't funny to me. I was terrified. One of them saw me. He looked right through the back window, and the window was a little foggy, but I saw him clearly. He looked at me, a little boy in the back seat. He grinned. He smiled at me, a wide, horrible smile. It was a smile without any warmth. It was just teeth. I can still see that smile when I close my eyes at night. It's the face of a bad dream. When my mom tried to protect my dad, they turned on her. One of the men pushed her really hard. She fell over, and the back of her head hit the hard pavement. I heard the smack. I heard her small cry of pain. I was screaming. I was trying to get out of the car. I was scratching at the door handle with my little hands, pulling and pulling. But my seatbelt had locked. It was stuck. I couldn't get out. I couldn't help them. I was just a little boy in a car, watching everything. I felt so small, so helpless. The car was my cage. The last thing I remember seeing was through the foggy back window. It was like watching a bad movie, but it was real. My father's blood was on the road. It was a dark, wet puddle that grew bigger and bigger. I saw his hand on the ground. It was twitching. It moved a little bit. It was still trying to be alive. The man with the chain raised it up one last time with a big grunt. I heard a heavy thud like a sack of potatoes hitting the floor. And then my dad's hand stopped moving. It was still. Everything was still. Then they all just ran. They vanished into the dark shadows, like they were never there. They were gone. It was like a bad magic trick. The silence that came after was the loudest thing I have ever heard. It screamed in my ears. I don't remember the ambulance. I don't remember the red and blue lights or the sound of the sirens. It's all a big blur, a very fuzzy picture in my head. I remember the white lights of the hospital. They were too bright, like the sun was right inside the room. They hurt my eyes. I remember the smell of clean soap and something else, something sad. I remember officers asking me questions. I remember their tired faces and the way they looked at me with sad eyes. I remember a priest talking to me. He pulled me aside and tried to tell me things that didn't make any sense. He talked about God and peace. He said my dad was in a better place. but I didn't want him in a better place. I wanted him in our car, right next to my mom, laughing. My mom lived, but she barely survived. Her body was never the same. She had to learn how to do things all over again, like a little baby. She had to learn to walk and talk again. Her eyes were even less the same. They had a blank look, like she was seeing things that weren't there. She looked like she never really came back from that night. Her body was here, but her mind was lost somewhere else. My dad was gone, just like that. One minute he was there laughing and talking, and the next minute he was just gone, like a candle flame that got blown out. And I changed. Something inside me broke. It was like a little glass cup that had fallen and shattered into a million pieces. The years went by and I stopped talking as much. I became quiet. I was a good kid. I got good grades in school. I was well behaved. Everyone said I was a good boy. They would say, "He's such a sweet boy," and I would just smile a little smile. But I was also learning other things in secret. I was learning about violence. I read books about how to hurt people, books I hid under my bed. I learned about pressure points on a body, places that made people hurt. I learned how to use a knife, how to hold it, how to make it feel like an extra finger. I learned about guns. I went to a gun range when I got old enough. I learned how they worked and what they could do. I learned how to box in secret. I didn't tell my mom. I took a fighting class called Krav Maga. It was a class that taught you how to fight to save your life. I used a fake name so nobody would find out who I was. I was getting stronger. My arms got bigger. My hands got tougher. I was getting better at fighting. My mind was getting tougher too. It was getting harder. It was like turning a soft rock into a diamond. By the time I was 19, I had a list. It was a list with 4 names on it. It wasn't hard to find them. Wexfield was not a big town, and bad people usually don't go far. The police had given up on the case. They said they couldn't find them. But I didn't give up. I knew who they were. They were just bad guys who had done bad things their whole lives. Their names were Arlo Chains Malice, Donnie Finch, Kel Brack, and their leader, Malik Rowan. I started to follow them. I took pictures of them with a cheap camera I got. I knew where they lived. I knew where they went for fun. I knew their routines, what they ate for lunch and what car they drove. I watched them like a hunter watches a rabbit. For a very long time, I waited. For 10 years, I waited. The days blurred into months, the months into years. I was a man now, with a heart that felt like a stone. I had a plan. My revenge started with Donnie. He was a small man, not like the big man who had hit my dad. He was the one who had punched my dad in the stomach. I found him in a bathroom at a gas station on the very edge of our town. It was late at night, and the gas station was empty. The bathroom was gross and smelled bad. I wore a mask and tight gloves so no one would know me. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it would break my ribs. He didn't know who I was at first. I didn't say a word to him. I just showed him what I had. He started crying like a little baby. He was begging me to stop. He was asking for mercy. He was asking for the thing he never gave to my dad. I made it look like a drug overdose. No one asked any questions. The police just wrote it off. It was simple. It was quiet. It was over. But I didn't feel any better. My heart was still a stone. Kel was next. I tampered with his car brakes. It was simple. It was clean. It was sudden. I waited for him to get in his car one morning. I watched him drive off. He was whistling. Later that day, I heard on the radio about an accident on the highway. A car had gone off the road. I knew it was him. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt empty. Arlo was more difficult. He loved strip clubs. He drank a lot of cheap vodka. I waited until he was very drunk one night. He could barely stand. I followed him all the way back to his house. He was singing a drunk song to himself. I waited for him to go inside and fall asleep. I went around the back. I got the gas can I had. I started to pour it all around his house. I lit a match. I burned his house to the ground. I made sure he was inside. I watched it burn from far away, from a little hill where no one could see me. The flames were bright orange against the black sky. It felt warm on my face. I watched it until the fire trucks came and the red lights flashed in the night. Then I left. There was no joy. There was just a quiet hum in my head, like a dead radio. Only one person was left on my list. The leader. His name was Malik Rowan. But Malik, he had changed. He wasn't the same man with the crazy eyes. He was a preacher now. He ran a halfway house for people who needed help, for people who were lost like he used to be. He called himself Brother M. He had a clean record now. He was a good person. He even gave speeches on TV about how a bad person could become a good person. He talked about redemption. People in town loved him. They would clap for him and say he was a good man. I hated him even more for this. I hated him for getting to live a good life. I hated him for pretending to be a good person. He was a monster who had put on a nice man's mask. But the more I followed him, the more confused I got. He was really helping people. He was taking care of them. He was giving them a second chance. He was helping people with sad eyes and broken hands. Could a monster really change? The night I finally saw him, I had my gun with me. He was praying alone in a small chapel. The chapel was quiet. It smelled like old wood and candles. The only light was from a few candles burning on a table. I walked in, and the door made a small creak. He looked up at me. He didn't look scared. He looked tired. His hair was gray now. His face had a lot of lines on it. He said in a very soft voice, "I've been waiting for you." I felt a little shiver go down my back. I was so surprised. I asked him, "You remember me?" My voice was a whisper. He nodded slowly. He said, "I remember all of it. I remember your father. I remember your mother's screams. I see them in my dreams every single night. They are always there, just like you have been." I started to shake. The rage I had kept inside for so long was burning behind my eyes. I felt it come up from the stone in my chest. It felt hot and heavy. I asked him, my voice cracking, "Why did you do it? Why did you hurt them?" He whispered back to me, and tears were in his eyes. "We were lost. We were on drugs. We were full of pride. We were full of rage." He stopped for a second. Then he looked at me again, really looked at me. But none of that matters now. I did what I did. There is no good reason. You saw it. You were just a child, and I broke you. I made you into what you are today. I made you a killer. I pulled out my gun. It was heavy in my hand. It felt like a part of me, a part I had been carrying for 10 years. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just kept looking at me with those tired eyes. He said, his voice a little stronger, "If killing me brings you peace, then do it. I deserve it. I have lived with the guilt every single day of my life. My life is not good. I am a monster who is trying to be a man again. Maybe you can find peace by making sure I am not a man anymore." But I couldn't. I just couldn't. Not then. Not there. The gun felt heavier and heavier, like it was pulling my arm down to the floor. The rage I had felt for so long was gone. There was just a big empty space. I stood there for a long time. The candles flickered. He just looked at me. Then I just turned and left. I walked out into the night, leaving the gun in the chapel on the floor. Now, I live in a big city. I teach self-defense to people. I teach them how to protect themselves. I tell them that the best fight is the one you don't have to get into. My mom lives with me. She still doesn't talk much. But when she touches my hand, I know she's still in there somewhere. She's still my mom. We watch the TV at night and eat ice cream. Sometimes I think about Malik. Sometimes I think about finishing what I started. But most nights, I just try to sleep. And every night, I see my dad. He is standing by our car. His hands are raised. He is smiling. He is alive in my memory. I couldn't save him that night. Justice? Maybe I found it. But peace? That never came. The real horror wasn't just what happened on that street. It wasn't just what they did to my family. The real horror was what I became afterward. I became a ghost walking through life with a heart that had gone cold. A ghost haunted by the monster I became to find justice for the people I loved. I had become the scariest thing out there, and there was no peace for that. People say that driving at night is peaceful. They have never done it for a living. I am Reggie. I have been a cab driver in the city of St. Louis for 12 years now. Mostly, I work the night shift. The money is better, that's true. But the risks are too. After midnight, you see all kinds of people. You see drunks. You see lovers. You see cops and dealers, and people who are just lost. But nothing at all, got me ready for what happened last Friday night. It started just like any other night, the same old routine. I picked up 2 college kids from downtown. I took a nurse to the big county general hospital. Then I waited in the dark alley behind Rudy's bar, just like I always do. My phone rang just after 12:45 in the morning. It was a new ping for a new job. The pickup was at the corner of Wilcox and 82nd. The passenger was a guy named Calvin. The drop-off was at 227 Wilshire Boulevard. Wilcox was in a really bad part of town. It was the kind of street where the porch lights were always off. The windows in the houses were always shut tight. But a job was a job. Money was money. I drove to the corner and saw 2 people waiting. They were standing under a street lamp that was half broken. It was a tall man in a hoodie and a small woman with long dark hair. They both had bags with them. They looked clean. Not like they were homeless, not like they were drunk. They just looked cold and very, very quiet. The tall man walked up to my window. He leaned down and looked in. "Are you Reggie?" he asked me. "Yeah, that's me," I said. "Are you Calvin?" He just nodded his head once. Then he opened the back door. Both of them got in the back of my cab. I started driving away. I looked in my mirror to see them. They weren't talking to each other. They weren't even looking at each other. They just stared straight ahead. The woman had her hands in her lap. She was holding something tight. The man had his hood up so I couldn't see his face very well. It was all in shadow. "So, where are you 2 headed?" I asked them. The woman spoke softly. "Wilshire." Her voice was strange. It was flat, like she was just repeating a thing she had to say. We drove in silence for a few more blocks. The only noise was the quiet hum of the engine and the sound of my own heart beating. My hands felt a little sweaty on the steering wheel, then things started to get weird. The man leaned over to the woman. He whispered something to her. It was so quiet I almost didn't hear it, but I did. My ears were listening harder than they ever had. I heard the man whisper, "Do it now?" And I heard the woman whisper back, "Wait." My hands felt cold. My grip on the steering wheel got tighter. My heart started to beat a little bit faster. A little bit faster became a lot faster. My stomach felt like it was doing a flip. I looked in the mirror again. The guy had moved closer to the woman. He was whispering in her ear. Her face still looked blank and empty. Then I saw her bag. It was not a purse. It was a duffel bag. It was a big, heavy-looking bag. It was the kind of bag you could stuff a bowling ball in. Or something much, much worse. The fear was a little tickle in my neck now. It was telling me to pay attention. "Almost there," I said. I tried to make it sound happy, but my voice shook a little. I had to swallow hard to make the words come out. I could feel my own breath in my lungs. My mouth felt dry. The man leaned forward all of a sudden. His head was right near my shoulder. I could smell something on him, like old cigarettes and something sharp, like metal. "Actually, change of plans," he said. "Pull over by that empty lot up ahead." My body felt hot and cold all at once. This was a bad sign. A very, very bad sign. This was not something people do. People go to the place they put on the app. They do not change their mind at the last second. They do not ask you to stop in a dark, empty place. "I can't do that," I said. "I have to take you to the place you put on the app." My voice was a little stronger this time. I was trying to sound like I was in charge, but my heart was hammering. It was a drum inside my chest. "You can do what we say," he said. His voice was low and mean. It was not a question. It was a rule. My heart started to pound in my ears. It was loud. It was the only thing I could hear. That is when I saw the woman unzip her duffel bag. The sound of the zipper was so loud in the quiet cab. It was a loud, mean sound. Inside, there was duct tape. There was a long, thick rope. And there was a big knife. A cold feeling went down my back. It was not a good cold feeling. It was panic. It was the cold of being in the water and not knowing how to swim. My mind was racing. I couldn't think straight. They were not the ones who needed a ride. They were not my passengers. I was the package they were going to deliver. The guy reached forward very fast. He grabbed my shoulder and squeezed hard. His fingers felt like a vice. The pain shot through me like a small fire. "Pull the car over right now," he yelled. The words were a loud burst of sound inside the small car. My whole body tensed up. My mind was screaming at me, "Run! Run! Run!" I did not listen to him. I did not listen to his words. I hit the gas pedal to the floor. The car made a loud noise. The tires screeched on the wet street. The car lunged forward like an animal. The woman screamed. It was a short, high sound. The man punched the back of my seat with his fist. The sound was a loud bang. They did not think I would do that. They were not ready for it. My mind was a mess, but my body was acting on its own. It knew what to do. "I have a panic button," I yelled. "The police are already on their way to me." That was a lie. My cab was too old for a new button like that. It was a trick I was playing, but sometimes a lie can save your life. It can buy you time. A little bit of time is all I needed. "Take the next left," the guy shouted to the woman. "He's going toward the lights." I turned onto a narrow alley. The sides of my cab scraped against dumpsters. I heard metal scraping and a loud bang. The noise was terrible. I was going too fast. I was hitting everything. But I didn't care. All I cared about was getting away. They were trying to climb into the front now. The guy's hand shot out. He tried to grab my neck. His hand was a big shadow moving toward me. I swerved the car hard to the right. Slam! The guy's head hit the window very hard. The glass made a sound like a small crack. He looked dazed and fell back into the seat. He was like a doll with a broken neck. But the woman was not dazed. She was more angry. Her eyes were not blank anymore. They were full of something hot and mean. She had the knife in her hand now. She lunged forward with it. The knife was a flash of silver in the dark. She slashed at my arm. I moved back as fast as I could. I pulled my arm away. But I felt the knife cut my shoulder. It felt like a bad burn. A hot, deep burn. I saw blood on my shirt. It was my blood. The smell of it was in the air. I knew I had one more thing I could do. One more thing to fight. I grabbed my old flashlight from under the dashboard. It was a big, heavy one. It was made of hard metal. I swung it backward without looking. It was a guess. I was just hoping it would hit something. It hit her chin with a loud crack. She screamed and dropped the knife on the floor. It clattered on the floor mat. My car burst out of the alley onto a big road. There were bright lights. I saw a gas station. It was a beautiful sight. The most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I swerved the car. I skidded to a stop. I threw open the door and fell out of my cab. "Help! Call the police!" I shouted. My arm was bleeding a lot. The blood was a warm, sticky river on my skin. It was soaking my shirt. 2 men were at a gas pump. They turned and looked at me. They looked scared. One of them took out his phone. The other man started to run toward me. He looked like he was coming to help. The back doors of my cab flew open. The man and the woman ran out of the car. They ran into the dark night. They were fast. They were like shadows. They vanished between 2 buildings before anyone could even move. They were just gone. Poof. Like they were never there. The police came 10 minutes later. It felt like 10 years. I told them everything that happened. I showed them the app ping on my phone. I showed them the pictures of the man and woman from my car's dash cam. I showed them my bleeding arm. They found the knife still on the floor mat of my cab. There were no fingerprints on it. The officer said the names and accounts were fake. They were probably using phones that you throw away. The officer looked at me. He said, "You were lucky, son. It sounds like they planned this whole thing." I just nodded my head. My whole body was shaking. My right side hurt so much. It felt like it was humming from all the fear and energy. I was so tired. I had to sit down on the curb. I didn't sleep that day. I didn't sleep the next day either. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his hand reaching for me. I saw the flash of the knife. The cops never found them. They were just gone. Now, every time I get a new ride, especially at night, I feel scared. My finger hovers over the accept button for a long time. My chest feels tight and it's hard to breathe. When I see 2 people standing at a pickup spot, I almost want to drive right past them. They changed me, forever. I learned a very hard thing that night. Sometimes you're not the driver. You are the destination. The fear started to change from a loud noise in my head to a quiet one. It was always there. It was like a hum under my skin. I could feel it when I was sitting on my couch at home. I could feel it when I was eating a sandwich. It never went away. I went back to work a week later. My boss, Mr. Henderson, told me to take it easy. "Take a few days off, Reggie," he said. You've earned it, and you've earned it the hard way. I tried to stay home. I sat in my small apartment and watched TV. But every time I heard a car outside, I would jump. Every time my phone rang, my hand would shake. I knew I had to go back to work. If I stayed home, the fear would get bigger. It would eat me up from the inside. So I put on my uniform. It was clean this time. The other one had to be thrown away. I drove out into the night again. It was a Tuesday. The first few rides were fine. A guy from a sports bar. A young woman who was tired from work. I felt a little bit like my old self, but then my phone dinged. It was for a pickup. The address was on the north side. The name on the screen was different. The photo was too. But my heart still started to beat fast. My hands felt cold on the steering wheel. I had to tell myself, Reggie, it's a different person. It's just a job. It's okay. I drove to the house. An older lady was waiting on the porch. She was wearing a big coat. She smiled and said, "Hello, dearie." I felt a little bit of the fear go away. A little bit. But it was still there. It was still a hum. I started to get new habits. Bad habits. I would always lock the doors of my cab right away. I would keep my heavy flashlight on the passenger seat, not under the dashboard. I would check my rearview mirror every few seconds, not just every few minutes. I started to be able to tell what was real and what was in my head. Most of the time, it was just in my head. A group of kids being loud was not a threat. A couple sitting close together was not a threat. But that little voice in my head would say, "What if? What if it's them? What if it's someone like them?" The voice never went away. I started to wonder what they wanted, why me? The cops said they planned it. But for what? Why a cab driver? Was it just a quick way to get money? A robbery that went wrong? Or was it something else? Something darker and scarier? Something about the way they moved and looked. They were like snakes. They were not afraid of me. They were not even afraid of getting caught. I didn't know. The not knowing was the worst part of it all. I thought about them every day. The tall man with the hood up. The quiet woman with the flat voice. I would remember the way she looked at the duffel bag. She didn't look scared. She looked like she was ready. And the way he grabbed my shoulder. It was a grab that meant business. It was a grab that meant harm. One night, I was driving through a busy part of town. I saw a couple arguing on the sidewalk. The man had a hoodie on. He was tall. My cab started to shake. My hands were so tight on the wheel that my knuckles turned white. I told myself it was not them. The man's face was different. He was not the same. But the fear did not listen. The fear was its own thing now. It was in charge. I drove past them really fast. I did not look back. That night, I went home early. I just couldn't do it anymore. The next day, I called Mr. Henderson. I told him I needed to take some more time off. He understood. He said, "Take all the time you need, Reggie." I decided to go to the police station. I wanted to ask them again. Maybe there was something new. Maybe they had found something. I talked to the same officer who was there that night. His name was Officer Miller. He looked tired. He had a cup of coffee in his hand. "Still no luck, Reggie," he said. The phone was wiped clean. The accounts were all fake. He shook his head slowly. "They could be from anywhere. They could be gone for good." "But you remember their faces, right?" I asked him. "From the dash cam?" He nodded. "Sure, we have the photos. We put them in the system. But we got 100 new cases every day. People get hurt. People get robbed. Your case is just one of many." I felt sad and mad at the same time. He was right. To him, I was just a case. To me, it was my whole life that changed. He looked at me with kind eyes. "You were lucky, Reggie. Don't forget that." "I know," I said. "I know I was lucky. But was I, though? Was I really lucky? Lucky people don't have to look in the mirror and see a small scar on their shoulder. Lucky people don't have to feel their heart beat faster every time a phone rings. Lucky people don't have to sleep with a baseball bat next to their bed." I started to think about quitting, leaving the job for good, but it was all I knew. I had been driving a cab for so long. It was who I was. Reggie the cab driver. I had to try one more time. I had to face the fear and not let it win. So I went back to work. I drove for a few hours. The night was quiet. Too quiet. My phone rang. It was a new ride. The address was on the east side of town this time. I looked at the name. The name was different. The photo was different. I took a deep breath. Okay, Reggie, I told myself. Just one more. One more, and then you can go home. I drove to the address. It was a house in a nice neighborhood. There was a man waiting on the porch. He was wearing a shirt and pants. He looked friendly. He had a smile on his face. I pulled up to the curb and unlocked the passenger door. "Hey there," he said. "Thanks for coming out so late." "No problem," I said. My voice was a little shaky. He got in the cab and shut the door. "Can you take me to the airport?" he asked. "Sure thing," I said. The airport. We started to drive. The man was nice. He talked about his trip. He was going to see his new grandson. He showed me a picture on his phone. The picture was of a little baby. It was so small and so cute. My fear started to go away, a little more of it. This was what I used to love about the job, meeting new people, hearing their stories. He told me about his wife. He told me about his kids. He was just a regular guy, not a threat at all. We got to the airport. I pulled up to the right place. He paid me. He gave me a big tip. "Thank you so much," he said. "Have a good night." "You too," I said. And I meant it. I watched him walk away with his suitcase. He looked happy. That's when I saw it. On the back of the passenger seat. He had left his phone. The phone with the picture of his grandson. I had to do the right thing. I had to give it back. I got out of my cab. I ran after him. "Sir," I yelled. "Sir, you forgot your phone." He turned around. He looked at me with a big smile. He took the phone and said, "Oh, thank you so much. You saved me a lot of trouble." Then he looked at my arm, at the small white line on my skin. He stopped smiling. He looked me right in the eyes. He didn't say anything. He just looked. And in that second, something changed. The look in his eyes was not friendly anymore. It was cold. It was the same cold I had seen in the woman's eyes. It was the look of a shark. It was the look of someone who sees food. Then he started to walk away again. He didn't look back. I stood there for a minute just staring at his back. The fear came back, all of it, all at once. My heart started to beat so fast it felt like it would break out of my chest. My hands started to shake. My legs felt weak. It was not a friendly man. It was a setup. It was a test. They had been watching me. They had been waiting. That man knew who I was. He knew what happened. The man had seen the scar on my arm. He knew I would remember. I had to tell myself that it wasn't real. It was in my head. But my gut told me it was real. My gut told me to run. I went back to my cab. I got in and I locked the doors. All of them. I drove out of the airport as fast as I could. I didn't care about the rides. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to be home. I wanted to be safe. I drove for what felt like hours. I kept looking in my mirror. Every car that came up behind me made me jump. Every face I saw made me feel sick. I got to my apartment and ran inside. I locked the door and put on all the chains. I pulled the blinds on my windows so no one could see in. I was home, but I was not safe. The hum was not a hum anymore. It was a loud noise. The noise was the sound of my blood running cold. I sat on my couch. My whole body was shaking. I held the baseball bat in my hand. I knew that I couldn't drive a cab anymore. Not after this. Not ever again. I had faced them once and I was lucky. I wouldn't be lucky a second time. I had tried to be brave. I had tried to go back to my life. But they had found me, or someone like them had. That last look from the man at the airport. It was a message. It said, "We know who you are. We haven't forgotten." And I knew that I would never be able to forget either. My old life was gone. My old self was gone. I was not Reggie the cab driver anymore. I was just Reggie, a man with a scar and a lot of fear. I had been lucky to get away that night, but it was not a free ride. I had paid for it. I was still paying for it. The price was my peace. The price was my life. And I knew that I would be paying that price for the rest of my days. They were still out there, and I was still their destination. The fear was real now. It was not a ghost. It was not a monster in a movie. It was the real evil that people can do to each other, and I had seen it up close. Too close. My cab sat outside my apartment. It was just a car, but it felt like a trap now. A terrible, moving trap that I was no longer brave enough to get inside. The key hung on the hook by my door. It was just a key, but it felt like a ghost now. It felt like a memory of a life that was gone forever. I finally got up from the couch. The sun was coming up. The light was weak, but it was there. I went to the window and I pulled the blinds back just a little. I peeked out. The street was empty, but it felt like 1,000 eyes were watching me. It felt like they were all waiting. I was a man in a small room. I was a man with a heavy baseball bat in his hand. My arm still had a small white line on it. It was a small, white promise. A promise that the fear would never, ever go away. The police had my photos. They had the knife. They had my story. But they didn't have the people. They didn't have the reason. They didn't have the answers. And I knew that I would never have them either. The man at the airport had showed me that. This wasn't something you solved. This was something you lived with. This was a new way of being. This was my new life. I walked over to the phone and I called Mr. Henderson. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. "Reggie? You all right?" he asked. His voice sounded tired too. "Yeah, Mr. Henderson," I said. "I'm fine, but I'm going to have to quit. I can't do it anymore." There was a long pause on the other end of the phone. I could hear his tired breathing. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "I understand, Reggie. I'm sorry." He hung up the phone. It was over, just like that. My career was over. My job was gone. My life was different. But the fear was still there. The quiet hum was still under my skin. It was still in my chest. It was still in my head. I walked back over to the couch. I sat down and I just watched the sunlight start to come into the room. It was a new day, but it was not a new life. It was just a continuation of the same, new, scary one. I put the baseball bat down. It felt like a part of my arm now. It felt like I had been holding it forever. I thought about the man at the airport. I thought about his smile. I thought about the picture of his grandson. He had a whole life, a normal life, a life with a family, a life with a grandson, but he also had another life, a secret life, a dark life. And for a moment, those 2 lives had crossed my path, and they had changed everything. I didn't know why. I didn't know how. I just knew that it had happened. The sun was brighter now. The light was almost blinding. I closed my eyes, and I leaned my head back. I felt the tears start to come. They were not from being scared anymore. They were from being so tired, and so sad. I had been lucky, the officer had said, but I didn't feel lucky. I felt like I had been robbed of my life, robbed of my peace, robbed of my old self. I sat there for a long time. I was just a man in a room. I was not a cab driver anymore. I was not a hero. I was not a victim. I was just Reggie, a man who had seen the bad in the world, and it had left a mark on him, a mark that would never go away. And the scariest part, I knew that the mark was not just on my arm. It was on my heart. It was in my head. It was in every single part of me. And it was there to stay, for the rest of my days. I really needed to get away from everything. It wasn't because of the police or anything bad. I just needed to get away from my own head. The city had broken me in half. My job was all day and all night long. I felt like a mouse on a spinning wheel. My girlfriend and I had a big, loud fight. We broke up and it was really sad. It made everything feel even worse. My doctor gave me a name for it. He said I was having a small breakdown. I just thought it felt like I couldn't breathe at all. Then my cousin Eric called me. He said I could use our grandpa's old house. The farmhouse was up in a place called Daggy's Vale. It was way out there in the woods. There were no other houses for miles, just me and the quiet. It was exactly what I needed to find. I packed my bags without even thinking. I drove for hours and hours and hours. The whole time I was driving, the air got cleaner. The trees got taller and thicker, like a green wall. The world got very still. It was a good kind of silence. It was the kind of quiet that feels like a hug. I could feel my shoulders dropping a little. I got to the house late at night. It was big and old and made of dark wood. It was all dark except for my truck lights. The wind made the house creak and groan. It felt like it was still alive and breathing. I felt a little scared, but mostly I was just happy. I pulled out my keys and found the big old one. It was rusty and felt heavy in my hand. The lock on the front door was hard to turn. Finally it clicked and the door opened up. I flicked on the light switch just inside the door. An old yellow light came on and made the room look small. The first 3 days were like a wonderful dream. I slept in late every single morning. The sun was so bright and warm on my face. I ate a big breakfast every day. I cooked with old pots and pans. I chopped wood with a big, heavy axe. It made me feel strong and useful again. I read a bunch of dusty old books. They smelled like my grandpa and old paper. It was so nice to be away from a screen. My phone didn't have any signal out here. No one could call me. No one could text me. It felt like I was the only person on Earth. I had no emails, no news to read on the computer. The only noise was the birds singing outside. It was all so quiet and so nice. I felt myself getting better a little bit at a time. My head felt less foggy and full of sad thoughts. I felt like I could finally take a real, deep breath. I spent a lot of time just walking outside. I walked through the tall fields of grass. I looked at all the different kinds of trees. I saw a deer once, just looking at me. It didn't even run away. I felt like I was healing my soul, but the peace didn't last forever. It started to feel too quiet after a while. The silence began to feel heavy and thick. It was like a blanket that was too warm. It started to feel like the silence was watching me. It started with a knock. It was late at night, almost 11 o'clock. I was sitting on the couch reading a book. The book in my hands fell onto the floor. It wasn't a hard knock at all, just a soft little taps. It was polite, almost, like a small bird. I froze on the couch, not moving a muscle. My heart jumped up into my throat and stayed there. I told myself it wasn't a real knock. I was the only one here for miles and miles. No one knew I was here, just my cousin Eric. And he lived a very, very long way away. I stood up very, very slowly from the couch. The old floorboards didn't even creak. I walked to the front door without making a sound. I put my ear right up to the old wood. I listened hard for a long time. I couldn't hear anything at all. The door had no peephole to look through. There were no windows on the sides of the door. I couldn't see a single thing outside. I put my hand on the doorknob. It was cold and old and made of metal. I took a deep breath and called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded small and weak in the big dark room. Nothing answered me back from the other side. The wind outside had started to blow hard. I could hear it rattling the windows now. It was making a sound like a ghost was shaking them. I stood there for a few more seconds. Then I opened the door. It made a small sound like a sigh as it swung open. I looked out into the darkness. The porch was empty and had no one on it. The night was black and quiet again. I stepped outside and looked all around me. The field in front of the house was dark and empty. I could see the shapes of the tall trees on the edge. They were swaying slowly in the wind. They made a sound like they were whispering. The woods looked like a big black wall. My mind tried to find an answer for the noise. Maybe the wind knocked a branch against the door. Maybe an old pipe in the wall made the noise. I closed the door and locked it tight. I locked the top lock and the bottom lock. Then I turned off all the lights in the house. I got into bed, but I didn't sleep at all. I just stared at the dark ceiling for a long time. I listened to every little sound the house made. The next day, I didn't think about it too much. I chopped more wood and ate a big lunch. But that night, I saw something new. It was a small rocking chair on the porch. My grandpa used to sit there and read his books. I had seen it on the first day I was here. It was old and had splintered wood on it. It was always next to the left post of the porch, but now it was right in front of the front door. I was very, very sure it had not been there before. I was the only one who could have moved it, but I had not touched it at all. I pushed it back to where it belonged. It made a loud scraping noise on the wood floor. My heart was beating fast and hard in my chest. I tried to tell myself it was just the wind. I tried to say maybe an animal knocked it over, but the chair was heavy and it was up on the porch. I started to check all the locks in the house. I checked them 3 times, then 4 times. Then I would go back and check them a 5th time. I kept a hammer under my bed, just in case, just for a bit of safety. I felt silly about it, but I couldn't stop. The house had so many windows everywhere. Too many, I thought to myself now. They were everywhere I looked, in every room. Most of them didn't have any curtains, just big pieces of glass that looked out into the dark. They were like big empty eyes in the night. I felt like I was being watched all the time now. I felt like I was on a stage in the middle of a play. The audience was the dark woods all around me. By the 5th night, I was very, very scared. I moved my things to the bedroom upstairs. That one room had big, heavy wooden shutters on the windows. I closed them tight every night, making sure they were locked. I put a long broomstick in the handle of the back door. It was to keep the door from opening, just in case. I felt like a little kid making a fort in my house, but I was a grown man now, not a child. I felt so silly and so very, very afraid. I told myself I was just being crazy. I was still not over my breakdown from the city. My mind was playing tricks on me because of the quiet. Then I woke up from a deep, heavy sleep. I heard a sound from outside my window. It was on the roof, right above my head. Slow footsteps, soft but very clear. One step, then another one after it. I held my breath inside my lungs. I listened with my whole body and all my ears. It sounded like someone was walking up there. I lay in bed without moving at all. My eyes were wide open in the dark, staring up. Then the sound stopped completely. Silence. Nothing. Not a single sound for a long time. I didn't sleep again for the rest of the night. The sun came up slowly, like it was a shy child. I was so happy to see the light coming back. I went outside to look at the roof. I looked all over the front yard for a long time. I looked for footprints in the wet dirt. I didn't see anything that looked like a shoe print. I looked up at the roof with my head tilted. The shingles were all in place and looked fine. No broken parts, no holes. Just a bunch of wet, dead leaves on the shingles. Nothing was there at all. I thought about calling Eric to tell him. But what would I even say to him? Hey, I think someone is on the roof of your house. He would think I was crazy and laughing. I couldn't call the police to help me. I had no cell signal here in the woods. The old landline phone on the wall didn't work. I just stayed. I had to stay. I had to prove to myself I wasn't scared. I had to prove to myself I wasn't losing my mind. But the next night, it got much worse. I was in the kitchen getting a drink of water. I looked at the big window next to the sink. There was a smudge on the glass. It was a fingerprint, a very clear one. It was on the inside of the glass. My stomach dropped down to my feet. My hands started to shake very badly. I knew I had not touched that window. I grabbed the hammer from under my bed. I ran through the house, checking every room. I yelled out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" The sound of my own voice was loud and big. It made me jump and feel scared all over again. I felt like a scared little boy playing a game. I checked every closet in the house. I looked behind every door I could see. There was no one there at all. I was alone. I was always alone here. But someone had been here with me. Someone had been inside my house. I pushed the heavy dresser against my bedroom door. I put a big chair under the knob to stop it. I felt like I was building a castle to be safe. That night, I started to hear the whispers. They didn't come from inside the house now. They came from outside, from the yard all around me. They were very quiet and low, like low, low voices carried on the wind. I couldn't make out any words at all. I didn't turn on a single light in the room. I stayed in the dark room on the floor. I looked out through a small crack in the shutters. I saw a shape in the field now. It looked a lot like a person standing still. Just standing there, not moving at all. It was very far away from me. It was too dark to see if it was a real person. I blinked my eyes and looked again hard. It was gone. It had disappeared now. I told myself it was just a trick of the light. Maybe it was just a tree in the dark night. I pressed my ear to the wall to listen. I heard footsteps now. They were in the room right below me. They were slow and soft, taking their time. 1 step, 2 steps. I held my breath and waited for them to stop. Then the footsteps stopped completely. Everything was quiet again all around me. The only sound was my own heart beating fast. In the morning, I decided I had to go. I didn't care about anything else now. I was not going to stay here another night. I didn't even pack my bags to take with me. I just grabbed my keys and went for the door. I ran outside, past the porch, to my truck. The truck was parked by the old barn building. I got to it and pulled on the door handle. Then I saw it right in front of my face. All 4 of my tires were slashed now, deep, clean cuts with a knife, like someone had used a big, sharp knife. My mind went completely blank. I backed away from the truck slowly. I felt the silence all around me. The birds had stopped singing a long time ago. The wind had stopped blowing now. There was no sound at all from the whole world. I ran back to the house as fast as I could. I slammed the front door behind me. I locked the locks and put the broomstick in place again. My mind was screaming inside my head. My body was shaking so bad I felt sick. I could not believe what was happening to me. I walked into the kitchen slowly. I saw something new on the old fridge. It was a picture held on with a magnet. It was a small, old-time photo. The picture was of me. I was sleeping in my bed, looking peaceful. The photo was taken last night, I knew it. My eyes were closed, and I looked peaceful and calm. But I knew I was not peaceful at all. My hands started shaking so bad I couldn't hold them still. I fell to the floor and just cried for a long time. I was so scared I couldn't even stand up. My whole body was shaking with fear now. I just sat on the floor for a long time. I tried to think. I tried to come up with a plan. I knew I was not alone here. I knew they were outside right now. They were waiting for me to do something. That night was the longest night of my whole life. I sat on the floor in the upstairs bedroom again. I had the hammer in my hands, holding it tight. I didn't turn on any lights now. I just sat in the dark for a long time. I watched the little slivers of light from the shutters. I listened to every single sound that came. The house made a lot of sounds on its own. The wind blew hard and rattled the windows. The old wood made a creaking noise like a ghost. The clock in the hall ticked very, very slowly. Every sound made me jump and feel scared. I thought I heard something outside again. A low murmur, like a bunch of people talking low. But then it was gone, and I didn't hear it again. The clock in the hall said it was 3 in the morning. 3:03 in the dark. Then I heard it. The doorknob to my bedroom door started to turn. It was not making a sound, just turning. I watched it turn slowly to the right. The big chair I had put under the knob stopped it from opening. The door didn't open. The knob turned to the left now, then it turned to the right again. I didn't make a sound from my mouth. I just held my breath inside my lungs. I gripped the hammer in my hand so tight. Then I heard a loud noise behind me. It was the sound of breaking glass. It was the sound of a window shattering. I screamed as loud as I could now. The big window behind me shattered and broke. Glass fell onto the floor and the bed. A hand reached through the broken glass now. It was a long hand with thin fingers on it. It was a human hand. I swung the hammer. I swung it as hard as I could at the hand. I didn't hear it hit anything soft. I just heard a sound like someone getting hurt. And then the hand was gone from the window. I heard fast footsteps outside the house. They were running away from the house now. I stood there for a long time without moving. I was breathing so hard it hurt my chest. I had to get out. I had to leave right now and not come back. I ran downstairs and out the front door. The sun was just starting to come up in the sky. The air was cold and wet with dew on the grass. I looked all over the yard now. I saw the footprints in the wet dirt. So many of them. I could not believe it. Dozens of footprints were there. They were all circling the house slowly. All of them were just standing there, looking, just watching and waiting for me. I started to run. I didn't even look back at the house. I ran as fast as I could into the woods. I ran for a very long time. I was not thinking about anything. I was not even scared anymore. I was just running to get away from everything. After a while, I came to a road. I saw a small building with a truck in the front. It was a ranger station for the woods. I ran up to the door and knocked hard. A man in a uniform opened the door for me. He looked at me with big, confused eyes. I was out of breath and shaking very badly. I told him everything that had happened to me. He called the police for me to come. The police went out to the old farmhouse, but they didn't find anything at all. They didn't find a single person in the woods. They didn't find any fingerprints on the glass. They didn't find any clues at all. I didn't go back to the house, not to get my stuff or my truck. I didn't even go back to tell Eric what happened. The police said they couldn't help me now. They said there was nothing to see. They said I might have dreamed it all in my head. But I know what I saw in that house. I know what I heard with my own ears. I know what I felt in my heart. They didn't want to kill me at all. They wanted to break me again, and they did a very good job of it. I still have a small, quiet fear with me. It lives in my stomach now all the time. It lives in my dreams when I sleep. Sometimes at night, I wake up from a bad dream. I sit up in bed and look at my window. I just wonder how long they were out there, and I wonder how many other people they watched, just through the windows of their houses, one at a time, for as long as they wanted. I was let out of the hospital 2 weeks ago. It was called St. Elizabeth Medical. It was a scary time for me, a truly scary time. My blood pressure got really high, so high my body just gave up. I remember being in a class at the community center. 1 second I was writing down notes about old stuff in the world. The next second the room spun all around me. It felt like the floor rushed up to my face. I fell down hard. A heavy, quiet thud. I hit the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. I woke up later with a big headache. A nurse was there, right next to my bed. She told me I was a lucky guy. She said I was very lucky to still be here. They told me to rest a lot. They gave me some little pills to take. I had to eat less salt and a lot of vegetables. I also had to not get so stressed out. I told the doctors I would do all those things. I really meant it, every single word. I wanted to be a healthy guy again. I wanted to be safe and sound. But I never thought the real stress would come after the hospital. The real worry started once I was back in my own home. It all started so small. Like how bad things always begin. They sneak up on you when you're not looking. The first time I saw him, I was at the store to get my pills. It was the Pineview Pharmacy. I was standing in a line to pay. He was 2 people behind me in the line. He was wearing gray sweatpants and a checkered shirt. The shirt was faded red and white, like it had been washed a million times. His head was looking down at the floor. He looked about 40 years old, maybe a little more. He didn't look like anyone special. He had the kind of face you would forget right away. But I did not forget his face. I didn't forget the checkered shirt, because I saw him again the very next day. I was walking past Lakehurst Park. The air was cold, and I was taking deep breaths. The doctor said the fresh air was good for me, good for my heart. He was across the street from me. He was just sitting there on a bench. He had on the same checkered shirt. He wasn't doing anything at all. He was just watching, just staring. He looked like a stone statue. I stopped walking on the sidewalk, and he stopped sitting on the bench. He looked right at me with his empty eyes. I got a funny feeling in my stomach, like a cold stone. I turned left onto a little path and started walking faster. I wanted to get away. I looked back over my shoulder a few seconds later. He was gone. Just gone. The bench was empty, like he was never there at all. It was strange. I told myself it was just a strange thing that happened one time, a strange thing that would never happen again. But I saw him again the next day. I was at the store to get milk. He was in a different aisle. He was just staring at me from behind the cans. And then I saw him the day after that. I was getting gas for my car. He was across the street behind a big tree. It felt like he was playing a game with me. And then I saw him the day after that too. He was always there. He was always watching. He never came up to me. He never said a word. He never smiled or waved. He just stood far away. Not close enough to be scary. Not close enough to make me call the police, but close enough for me to know he was there, like a shadow. I was not just seeing things. My eyes were not playing tricks on me. It was real. Always the same face with no feeling in it. Always the same faded checkered shirt. It was like a new part of my life. A new part I did not want. A part that filled me with a cold, slow fear. I started to close my blinds at home. I would keep them shut all the time. I would not look at the windows, but sometimes I just had to look. My eyes would find the blinds, and I would feel a pull to look outside. I would peek through a tiny little crack. One time, it was late at night, around 11 p.m. I saw a dark shape across the street. It was standing under a street lamp. It was not moving, not at all. It was just a dark, still shape. I knew it was him. My heart started to beat very fast and hard in my chest. I pulled the curtain wide open. The spot was empty. The street lamp was shining on nothing. He was gone again. My mind was like a broken toy. It was so full of worry I could not sleep at all. My mind thought of all the reasons why this was happening. Was it someone from my past? Did I do something bad to a person I did not know? I had not been mean to anyone. I lived all alone. I just kept to myself in my little house. My life was very boring. My life was safe and easy, but not anymore. Now it was full of fear. I was not safe. I was not easy. The world outside felt like it had teeth. I told my neighbor about it. Her name was Maria. She was a nice lady. She always said hello to me and smiled. She would wave when she watered her flowers. I told her what was happening, all the little things, all the strange parts. She said I should call the police. She said it was not right. I told her they would not do anything. I told her he had not hurt me or said anything. He was just a guy in a checkered shirt. He was not a monster. Maria said I should still try. She said it was important to write it down, to have proof, to keep a record of it, to make a book of it all. So I tried to do what she said. I went to a coffee shop and tried to get a photo of him. I pointed my phone out the window. All you could see was a blurry man shape in a checkered shirt. It was not a good photo, but I knew it was him. I knew what I saw. I started a little notebook. I started to write down all the times I saw him, the dates and the times, and where he was. March 6th, 5:42 p.m., by the store where I wash my clothes. March 7th, 8:15 p.m., behind the gas station when I got gas. March 8th, 2:03 p.m., on the corner of 5th Street and Longford. The list in the notebook grew longer and longer. I stopped leaving my house for a while. I was too scared to go outside. My world got very small, just the four walls of my house. But even inside my house, I could not feel calm. I would hear footsteps in my dreams. Every tiny sound the house made me jump. I did not have any animals in the house. My friends did not come to visit very often. I had not talked to my brother in a long time. I was all alone. Just me in my house, except I was not alone. He was outside. I could feel it, like a buzzing in my head. One night, I could not sleep. It was very late. I went into the kitchen to get a glass of cold water. It felt good on my hot face. I looked out the window above the sink. The alley behind my house was dark, but the moon was bright enough. I could see something standing there. Someone was standing right at the edge of my backyard. He was not moving at all. He was just still, like he was a part of the night. He had on the same checkered shirt. I dropped the glass of water. It hit the floor and broke into many small pieces. Water went everywhere. I did not even feel the little cuts on my foot from the broken glass. I grabbed my phone from the counter and I called 911. My hands were shaking so bad. The phone felt like a wet fish. The police came in a little car with red and blue lights. They came to my house and walked all around my yard with their flashlights. They told me they could not find anyone. They said it was probably just stress. They said maybe the hospital trip made me feel this way, made me see things. They told me I needed more sleep. One of the cops was a young guy. He was almost laughing at me. He said maybe I should stop listening to those scary stories on my phone. He said it in a way that made me feel so small. I felt foolish. I stopped calling the police after that night, but the man did not stop showing up. The fear did not stop showing up. I went to the store and bought a big baseball bat. I slept with the bat right next to my bed. I also bought some cheap cameras from the store. They were small and not very good. I put them on the windows. I hoped they would help me think clearly. I hoped they would prove I was not crazy. March 12th. I woke up and watched the film from the cameras. Nothing was there. Just a quiet, empty street all night long. March 13th. Nothing. The same quiet, empty street. My heart felt heavy with a sad kind of hope. But on March 14th, something happened. At 3:23 in the morning, the camera film had a little problem. A tiny fuzzy shape showed up on the side of the screen. It was there for a very small second. Then it was gone. But I knew what it was. My whole body knew. The feeling came back. The feeling of being watched. I stopped watching the camera film after that. It was too scary to look. I started to talk to myself. I did it out loud without trying to. I would just whisper things when I was alone. "You are not real," I would say. You are just in my head. You are not real. My own voice became my lullaby at night. It became my shield during the day. It was the only thing that made me feel a little safe. Then came the very bad part, the worst part. March 17th, it was a holiday. I went outside to take out the trash. I had to, and I found a note. It was on my front door. It was just a single page of paper. It did not have an envelope. The sides were torn and rough. There were 4 words on the paper, just 4 words written in a messy way. I remember the ICU. My stomach felt like it dropped to my feet. I stumbled back into my house. Every part of my body was shaking very hard. My hands were shaking. My legs were shaking. I went to my desk drawer and I pulled out the papers from the hospital. The papers had a section for the ICU. I looked at the list of people who were there at the same time as me. I had never looked at the papers before. I was too sick to care, too sleepy. I just wanted to go home. But now I looked. Now I saw it. Bed number 12. Roger Thale. It said he had a heart attack, like me. It said he died at 3:44 in the morning. The date was March 2nd. I was in the bed right next to him, bed number 11. I had a little memory of that morning. A dark, sad memory. I remember the sounds of the machines beeping. A nurse was yelling something. The doctors ran past my curtain. A man was not alive anymore. They could not save him. I never saw his face. I was too sick and tired. But what if he saw mine? I was alive. He was not. What if he saw my face right before he died? Was this his way of getting back at me? Was he a family member? Was he a brother I did not know about? Had he been watching me since that day? Why? Why was he doing this to me, the man in the checkered shirt? I could not breathe right. My head was spinning out of control. I went into my bedroom and grabbed a bag. I started putting clothes in it. I was going to leave this town. I did not care about anything else. I just had to get away. But first, I needed to go to the hospital again. I needed to know the truth. I needed answers to all my questions. That was a big mistake. I got to the hospital around noon. I went to a desk and talked to a lady who worked there. I asked her about Roger Thale. She made a frown with her face. She told me she could not tell me anything about other people. It was a rule. I told her he had died in the bed next to mine. I told her I was scared. I told her I was losing my mind. She stopped for a minute. She looked at her computer screen. Her eyebrows came together in a line. "There is no record of a man named Roger Thale dying here," she said very slowly. "Are you sure about the date you gave me?" I pulled out my papers from the hospital and showed her. She checked her computer again, her frown getting deeper. She did not know what to think. She called another person from the records office. They came down and took me to a room in the basement. The records were still on paper back then. Not everything was on the computers. We found the big book for March 2nd. The page was a little old and dirty. There it was, written in blue pen. It was a little smeared, but I could still read it. Roger Thale, deceased. The time was 3:44 in the morning. It was real. I had not made it up. But then I saw something else, something very strange. Next to his name, someone had written a note in red pen. It said, "This is wrong. He did not die. We brought him back to life." My heart felt like it stopped. He was alive? But then why was there no record of him now? I asked the records officer that question. No one knew the answer. "He must have been moved to a different hospital," the records officer said. "Where?" I asked him. "Where did he go?" He did not have an answer for me. He just shrugged. I never found out. I left the hospital. I felt sick to my stomach. My head was spinning again, just like in the classroom. I went home, and I packed my bag again. I would leave the town when the sun came up. I was going to drive away and never come back. I would go so far away he could not find me. I would go to a new place and a new life. But I did not get to leave. Because at 4:12 in the morning, I woke up. I heard the front door of my house creak open, a slow, quiet sound. I was not dreaming. I was awake. And the man in the checkered shirt walked into my room. He did not say anything. He did not have a look on his face. He just walked to my bed and sat down on the edge of it. I could not move my body. I could not scream a sound. My body just would not let me. My arms and legs felt like heavy rocks. He put his hand into the pocket of his shirt. He pulled out a little oxygen mask, the kind they use in the hospital. the kind I had seen on the face of the man who died, or the man who was supposed to have died. He put the mask on my chest very gently. He put it on my chest, and he leaned in very close. He put his mouth right next to my ear, and then he said the words in a quiet whisper, a sound like a soft wind. "You got the last chance to live," he said. "You should have died. Not me." He got up from my bed. He walked out of my room. He walked out of my house, leaving the front door open behind him. I just sat up in my bed. I was shaking from my head to my feet. He was gone. I moved out the next day. I changed my name to something new. I left all my things behind. I did not want them anymore. But sometimes when I am all alone and it is late at night and very quiet, I can hear a soft hiss, the sound of a machine. And I know he is still out there, and I know he is still watching. I wasn't supposed to be here, not in this burning heat, not in this empty place. I told myself that every single day, but a man can do crazy things for money, and I was a man who needed money real bad. I had a lot of problems. My mechanic job was gone. The bank sent mean letters every day. My wife had left me and taken the kids. My bills were a mountain I couldn't climb. Every time the mail came, my stomach would get all tight. It was a punch to the gut. I had nothing left to lose. I was all out of good ideas. So when a man named Clemens offered me a lot of money, I didn't ask too many questions. He said it was $20,000. $20,000. It was more money than I had ever held in my life, so I just nodded my head and took the deal. He said it was a simple job, just drive a truck through the desert, take a crate from one side to the other. He looked at me with a cold stare. Easy money, he called it. He said we would be a team. There were 5 of us all together, 5 lost people, I guess. All broken in our own way. I remember seeing them all for the first time. It was a dusty parking lot next to an old road. The sun was hot even then. There was Micah. He was the driver, ex-army. You could see it in his face. He didn't talk much, just drove with a cool head. He was a big rock of a man, the kind of guy you want with you when things get bad. He never panicked, just stared at the road. I saw a faded tattoo on his arm. It was a snake eating its own tail. It looked old and tired. Tammy was our gearhead. She knew cars better than anyone I had ever met. She could hear a problem just from the sound of an engine. She was tough. She always had a smart mouth on her. She made you laugh even when you were sweating like a pig. Her face was strong and full of lines from the sun, but her eyes were kind. They were the kind of eyes that had seen a lot of hard things. Vic and Darren were twins. They came from a place called Fresno. They looked like 2 sides of the same coin, but they were different. You could tell they had some past, some shady one. They were always watching their backs, like something was coming for them. Vic was quiet and always smoked. He lit one cigarette after another, never even looking at you. Darren was loud and told bad jokes. He was trying to be funny, but his eyes were always wide. He was a scared person trying to act tough. And then there was me, Eli Navarro. I used to fix cars. Now I was here, in the middle of nowhere, broke and in too deep. I remember the day we met Clemens. It was in a ghost town. Just a few old houses and a dusty gas pump. The wind whistled through the broken windows. The town felt like a tomb. It smelled like old wood and dry dust. We all just stood there, waiting for him. He showed up in a clean black car that didn't fit the place at all. He got out and just looked at us, one by one. He paid us all up front. He had a big bag of cash for each of us. The money felt heavy in my hand, like a promise. He looked each of us in the eye. "Just take the truck to the other side," he said. "It's a 2-day trip, maybe 3. Then he looked at the crate. It was in the back of a big truck. "And don't open the crate," he said, "not for anything." The crate was black and sealed tight. It didn't look like anything special, but it was weirdly smooth, no nails, no screws, and it had a quiet hum, a little soft noise, like a tiny machine was running inside it. Or like it had a heartbeat. That little hum was our first warning. A quiet, small thing that felt so wrong. We should have turned around then. But we all needed the money. No one said a word. We just got in the truck and drove off into the yellow ocean. The first day was a long one. The sun was a hammer. It beat down on us. The desert was huge. Just sand and rocks and nothing else. It was like a big, flat ocean. A yellow ocean. The air shimmered over the sand. You could see wavy lines on the dunes. They were heat waves. I tried not to look at them too long. They made my eyes hurt. The heat filled up the truck, even with the windows down. It felt like breathing fire. Micah drove. He had a strong grip on the wheel, his knuckles white. He looked like a statue. Nothing bothered him. Tammy sat next to him. She checked her maps and a small old compass. She kept muttering things under her breath, numbers and directions. I sat in the back with the crate and the twins. The crate was between us. It was so big it took up most of the space. It felt like a third person in the truck. Darren told a bunch of stupid jokes. He was trying to be funny, but his eyes were wide and moving all over the place. He was scared. We all were. Vic just smoked his cigarettes, one after another. The smoke was a little cloud around his head. He didn't say a word, just watched the desert pass. I just watched the crate. The humming was so soft, I almost thought I was making it up. But it was there, like a little secret. The sun started to go down. The sky turned from yellow to orange to purple. It was a pretty sight, but it also felt like a trap. We set up camp when the sun was gone. The air got cold fast. The stars came out. They were so bright out here, like little diamonds on a black velvet cloth. We made a fire. It felt good on my face. We shared some beers and told stories. Just normal stuff. Trying to feel like normal people again. Tammy told a story about a car she fixed that had been in a huge crash. Micah just listened, his face lit by the firelight. Darren made a joke. We were trying to forget what was in that box, trying to forget why we were here. We were trying to be friends. Then we heard it. The first sound. Click. It came from the crate. It wasn't a loud sound. It wasn't like a car door closing or a rock hitting something. It was a wet sound, a clicking, like a lizard's tongue, a slow, sticky, terrible sound. Micah and I went to look. The crate was still sealed. Nothing was different, but the humming felt louder now, like it was full of angry bees, and the clicking sound came again. It was a slow sound. Click, pause, click, like something was waking up inside. And it didn't like being in that box. It wanted to get out. It was a terrible, terrible thought. The second day, everything was different. The morning sun didn't feel friendly. It felt like a trap. The sand looked angry. We got in the truck and tried to start moving. The engine roared, but the wheels just spun in the soft sand. It was like we were stuck in glue. The GPS was broken. The little arrow just spun in circles. Tammy threw the whole thing on the sand. It landed with a soft thump. The compass was dead too. The needle just shook back and forth. It wouldn't point north or south. It was just useless. Tammy looked so confused. "We haven't moved an inch," she said. Her voice was small. "I marked our spot last night. We're still right there." But the desert had moved. Our tire marks from the day before were gone. The sand was smooth, like nothing had ever been there. It was like the desert ate them. The sand felt soft, like it was waiting for us, like a big, hungry mouth. We spent the morning trying to dig the truck out, but it was no use. The sand just kept falling back in. We were stuck. At noon, we saw a jeep. It was half buried in a dune. It was a strange sight in the empty sand. A sad, rusty box. The doors were ripped off. The windows were smashed. Inside was old, brown blood. It was everywhere. On the seats, on the dash. Vic walked around it. He looked at the plates. "Arizona plates," he said. "They never made it out." He didn't say anything else. We all knew what he meant. They were stuck here too, and something got them, something bad. We started to walk away from the truck. We needed to find a way out. We were walking in a line, following Tammy and her useless compass. The whispers started then. I heard my name. Eli. It was soft, like a breeze, but the air was still. It felt like it was inside my head. I looked around. No one was there. The others heard it too. I could see it on their faces. Darren looked like he was going to throw up. He put his hand over his mouth. Vic dropped his cigarette. It fell to the sand and went out. We all just froze. It was just us, the truck, and the crate, and the whispers in our heads. That night, we heard a scream. We were sitting around a small fire, watching the dark. Darren had gone to pee behind a big rock. He was gone for a while. Then we heard it. A short, high scream. Then nothing. The silence after it was the worst sound of all. We ran to the rock. He wasn't there. We looked around with our flashlights. The desert was black and full of shadows. And then we saw it. What was left of him. His body was in a weird spot about 20 feet away. His throat was ripped open. But there were no footprints near him, just smooth sand, just his body on the sand, like he had been dropped from the sky. There were marks around his body, like claw marks. They were in a circle, like something had danced around him before it got him. Micah started to lose it. He was breathing hard. He kept looking from Darren's body to the crate. Tammy was on the radio. Her voice was shaking. "Hello? Can anyone hear me?" she yelled. She tried every channel. All we heard was static, and a quiet breathing sound behind it. A long, deep breath, like something was listening to us. We lit torches. We had guns now. We sat in a circle around the fire, watching the dark. The crate was pulsing. It had a heartbeat now. A slow, steady beat. It got faster as we got more scared, like it was feeding on our fear. The noise filled the night. It was loud and angry. It was the sound of a living thing. Then it just stopped. The silence was louder than the noise. We all just stared at it, frozen. No one spoke. Day 3 was the day it really started to get bad. The sun came up, but Micah was gone. He wasn't in his spot. His sleeping bag was empty, just a drag mark in the sand. A straight line. It went out about 60 feet, right to a big sand dune. The dune looked normal. Nothing special about it. Tammy ran to it. She dropped to her knees and started digging with her hands. "We have to find him," she screamed. Her voice was full of sand and tears. "We have to find him." She was digging like a wild thing. We all were. Our hands were bloody, our fingernails were broken. We didn't care, but every time we pulled sand away, more sand just fell back in. It was like trying to dig a hole in water. The sand just kept falling back in. We were going crazy. Then he screamed from under the sand, a muffled, terrible sound. "Gah, get it off me!" We dug faster. Vic was crying now. "Micah, we're here, we're coming." But he was being pulled down. We could see the sand moving in a circle. The desert itself was eating him. His last scream wasn't for help. It was a warning. "Burn it. Burn the fucking box." Then he was gone. The sand was smooth again, like he was never there, like he was never one of us. We just stood there. Our hands hurt so bad. We were covered in sand. We looked at the crate. We all knew what he had meant. Tammy threw some gas on it. She lit a match. The crate caught fire for a second. The wood turned black. Then the fire just went out. The wood was black, but it didn't burn. It was cold to the touch. Vic hit it with a rock. The rock just bounced off. It didn't even leave a mark. The crate was stronger than stone. It was like something living. Then it cracked. The seal on the crate opened up a little. A small dark line appeared, and from inside, a small dark shape opened. It was an eye, a black eye. It was looking at us. It was looking right through us. Day 4. Just me, Tammy, and Vic. The desert felt bigger now, like it was smiling. We got back in the truck. We tried to get away from the crate, but the truck just died. The engine coughed once. Then it was silent. The desert took its power. The truck was just a metal box now, just like the crate. We started walking. We walked for hours. The sun was hot. My skin felt like a piece of old paper. My lips were cracked. My throat was so dry it felt like it was made of dust. We started to see things, mirages. But they weren't just water. We saw cities in the sky, tall, shiny buildings. We saw people we had lost. My father, waving to me. He looked so happy, so real. He was holding a glass of cold water, but they weren't real. They were tricks. The desert was playing games with our minds. It was showing us what we wanted the most. Then we saw the second thing. It wasn't from the box. It came from the sand. It was drawn to the crate. The crate was on a dune, just sitting there. It was a creature, but it wasn't made of flesh and bones, not like us. It had long arms. Its face looked like melted bone. Its legs bent wrong, like a spider. It crawled out of the sand. It didn't run. It moved slow, like a bad dream. It whispered, not with a mouth. It was in our heads. a cold voice. "You are tired," it said to us. "You are thirsty." It showed us a picture in our minds, a cool, clear glass of water, a swimming pool. It was a lie. We knew it was. Then it whispered, "I can give you mercy. Just stop. Just rest." Tammy didn't listen. Her face was full of anger. She raised her gun. She shot it in the head, bang. It didn't fall. It didn't even make a sound. It just exploded into a cloud of black shadows. They flew everywhere. The shadows covered Vic. He screamed. It was a high, thin sound. He tried to fight them off, but they were all over him. He started to shrivel, like a grape turning into a raisin. His skin got dry, his bones cracked, and then he was gone. Just a little pile of sand. The shadows just disappeared into the ground. Tammy and I ran. We didn't know where we were going. We just ran, away from the whispers, away from the black shadows, away from the box. We didn't talk about it anymore. The box. We couldn't. It was awake now, and it was hungry. The final day. Just me and Tammy. We found a place. A cave. It was old, carved out by the wind. The rocks were a dark red color. Inside, we found bones. So many bones. Piles of them. Some were old and white. Some were still in old army boots. Some had dried up wallets next to them. This had been happening for a long, long time. We weren't the first ones. On one of the walls, a symbol was carved. A black eye. And it was bleeding sand. The same eye that was in the crate. Tammy sat down. She looked at the bones. She looked at me. Her face was empty. It was like someone had taken everything out of her. "This wasn't an escort mission," she whispered. Her voice was just a ghost of a sound. "We weren't taking it somewhere." She paused. Her eyes were big and wet with tears that wouldn't fall. "We were feeding it." She was right. We were bait. We were food. The box was just something to draw us in. The desert was the real monster. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a box. The whole desert was alive, and it was hungry. That night, she slit her throat. I saw her do it. She didn't make a sound, just a little drop of blood. It hit the sand and was gone. I think the whispers told her to. Or maybe it was the heat. Or maybe she just couldn't take it anymore. The fear. The loss. Now I am alone. The last one. I can't feel my legs anymore. My hands are too dry to bleed. My skin is cracked like old dirt. I have nowhere left to go. The cave is just a tomb. My tomb. But I can still hear them. Micah. Tammy. Victor Darren. My father. They are all calling me. Their voices are under the sand. The box is pulsing again. I hear its heartbeat. It is a slow, steady drum. And I know it is coming for me. The sun is going down. The stars will come out. They will look so far away, like little lights on the other side of a locked door. I understand now. The box is hungry. The desert is hungry. And I am the last meal. I am the last course. I close my eyes. I hear the whispers. I hear the heartbeat of the desert, and I let it take me. The sand feeds no one. It just takes everyone. I don't know when it started. I can't really put a day on it. Maybe it was a month ago. Maybe it was even 2 months. Time feels all mixed up now. It's hard to remember a time before this. I can't sleep anymore. Not like a normal person anyway. I don't get safe, deep sleep. Every time I close my eyes, things change. Not in my room, but inside of me. At first, it was just small stuff. I would wake up in the morning. The lamp would be turned on. I was sure I turned it off. I remember clicking the switch. Then, the kitchen faucet would be running. Just a little drip, drip, drip sound. I was sure I had turned it off too. It was strange, but not scary. My keys would be in the fridge. The TV remote was in the bathroom. Little things were all out of place. I just laughed about it at first. I told my friends at work. I made a joke about it. "Guess I'm sleepwalking," I said. They all laughed. It was a funny idea. Just something silly I did. Something I didn't remember. Something I did in my sleep. But then, it started getting worse. Much, much worse. It wasn't funny anymore. It started to feel scary. The jokes stopped. My laughter stopped too. It was a Monday morning. My alarm clock buzzed on the table. I got out of my warm bed. I walked to the bathroom. I was going to wash my face, just like every other morning, and then, just like that, I was somewhere else. It was a sudden change, like a camera had snapped. I was in the parking lot behind my house. My feet were bare and cold. My hands were covered in mud. I didn't know how I got there. I had no memory of walking outside. My mind was just a blank space. One second I was in the bathroom, the next I was standing in the mud. The cold ground hurt my feet. My heart started beating like a drum, a fast, loud, heavy sound. I ran back to my apartment door. I tried the handle. It was locked from the inside. I had to use my key to get back in. It was a little key on a chain. My hands were shaking as I put it in the lock. I looked all over my home. Everything was fine. Nothing was broken. Nothing was stolen. My TV was still there. The stuff on my tables was still there. It was just me, alone in my house, losing control of my own body. It was a feeling worse than being robbed, worse than losing something. It was like losing myself. I called the doctor right away. He gave me a time to come in. I went and told him everything. I told him about the keys and the remote. I told him about the mud on my hands. I told him about the locked door. He said maybe it was stress. He said maybe I had something called sleep apnea. He said it might be night terrors. He gave me a little pill. He said it would help me sleep. He told me to stop drinking coffee. He said not to look at my phone before bed. I listened to him. I did everything he said. I wanted this to stop. I wanted to be normal again. But that night, it was even worse. I went to bed. I took the pill. I closed my eyes. I was hoping to have a good night's rest. I was hoping to feel safe again. I was hoping for a new start. I didn't wake up in my bed. I woke up in my bathtub. I was wearing all my clothes, my pants, my shirt, my socks. They were soaking wet. The cold water was all the way up to my neck. My eyes snapped open. My mouth was wide open. A loud, wet scream came out of my throat. The water felt like ice. The cold went all through my body. The fear felt like a big, heavy rock in my stomach. I knew then that this wasn't just sleepwalking. This was something else, something big. Something was happening when I slept. I needed to know what it was. I needed to see it. I went to the store that same day. I bought a little camera. It was a small black box. I set it up on my bookshelf. I made sure it was pointed right at my bed. It was like a new eye in my room. I wanted proof. I wanted to see what my body was doing. Maybe if I saw it, I could understand. Maybe I could make it stop. That night, I went to sleep. The camera was watching me. It felt like having another person in the room. But this one didn't blink. It didn't move or make a sound. The next morning, I woke up early. I felt so tired and so scared. My body ached. I went to the camera. My hands were shaking. I took out the little card with the video on it. I put the card into my computer. I clicked the button to play the video. At first, it was just me. I was tossing and turning in my bed. I mumbled a little in my sleep. Then the time on the video changed. It was 2:41 in the morning, and my body sat up in the bed. So slowly, it was like a broken toy. A toy that was being turned on. My back was straight. My face was blank. My eyes were open, but they didn't look like my eyes. They were just staring right at the camera, right at me. For 3 whole hours, I just sat there. My body didn't move at all. My eyes didn't blink. I was watching myself from the outside. It was the scariest thing I had ever seen. It was me. But it wasn't me. It was an empty shell of me, just sitting there and watching. And then, at 5:47 in the morning, my body moved again. I got out of bed. I walked over to the bookshelf. My movements were stiff, not like a normal person's, like a robot or a doll. I reached for the camera. I pulled the cord out of the wall. The video went black, just like that. The last thing I saw was my own hand pulling the plug. I didn't remember any of it, not a single moment. My body was a stranger to me, a tool for someone or something else. I tried to tell myself it was a dream. I tried to say the camera was broken. I tried to find a reason, but I knew it was real. I saw it with my own eyes. The fear was a hot spike in my heart. After that, other people started to see things too. A neighbor who lives down the hall. She stopped me one day in the elevator. She looked at me in a weird way. Her face was full of worry. She asked if I was okay. She said she saw me in the hallway. It was 3 in the morning. I was walking back and forth, barefoot on the cold floor. She said I was whispering to myself, just little sounds she couldn't understand. I just smiled and said I was fine. I made a joke about being a night owl, but my stomach was twisting. Then, a guy from my job, Mike, sent me a message. He said, "Hey man, you were up late last night." I had no idea what he was talking about. He said I sent him text messages. I told him I was in bed. He didn't believe me. He showed me the texts. At first, they were just weird letters, like a cat had walked on my phone. It was a string of random keys. But then, there was one message. It was a clean sentence. It was just 6 words. It said, "Don't let me sleep." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Who sent that? It wasn't me. It couldn't be me. I looked at the time on the texts. It was 4:12 in the morning. That's when I was supposed to be in bed. That's when my body was doing things without me. A few days later, I got home from work. I was so tired. My whole body felt like a heavy sack of rocks. I just wanted to rest. I walked into my kitchen, and I saw a little piece of paper on the table, just a folded piece of paper. It was in my handwriting. It looked exactly like my letters, the shape of the S, the loop of the D. But I swear, I didn't write it. I couldn't have. My hands were shaking as I unfolded it. I felt a coldness wash over me. It said, "I'm trying to take over." I almost dropped the note. My legs felt weak. It said, "You have to stay awake. Please. Before he finishes becoming me." I read it over and over. It was like a message from myself, but from a different me. The me that was trapped inside. The me that was losing the fight. I went and checked every single door. All of them were locked. Every single window was shut tight. There was no way for anyone to get in, except the me that came out at night. After that, I stopped sleeping for real. I knew I couldn't. I lived on coffee and energy drinks. My heart was always beating fast. My head always hurt. My hands were always shaking. I was always in a panic. I bought new locks for my bedroom door, big metal heavy ones. I put big bolts on all the windows. I put motion detectors in the living room. I built a prison for myself, but none of it helped, because the danger wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside of me, from my own body. I tried to sleep just a little bit, just 20 minutes at a time. I would set an alarm on my phone. I put the phone all the way across the room, far enough that I had to get up to turn it off. I was hoping that would keep me safe, but I would wake up to a new sound, a scratching sound. It was coming from my bedroom door. It was on the inside. It was like someone with long, sharp fingernails. They were scraping against the wood. I would wake up, and the door would be covered in marks, deep, long scratches. My fingers ached. I was scratching my own door, trying to get out. Then, one night, I woke up to a new sound. It was my phone. It was on the floor next to my bed. It was recording audio. I didn't turn it on. My body had done it. I played the sound back. At first, it was just the sound of breathing, my own breathing. Then a low whispering sound started. It was a voice. It was saying my name. The whisper was long and slow. It was a dry, awful sound. It was a whisper, but it sounded so close, like it was right next to my ear. It repeated my name for 12 minutes, over and over again. The voice didn't sound like me. It was deeper. It was colder. It sounded empty, like a room with no furniture, like a house with no family. The worst thing happened last week. I woke up in my bed. The sun was just starting to rise. A soft gray light was in the room. I felt a cold metal thing in my hand. My fingers were wrapped around it. I looked down. It was a big kitchen knife. I was holding it tight. Right in front of my bed, there was a chair. It was facing my bed, like I had been talking to someone, like I had been asking them questions, like I was waiting for an answer. But there was no one there. I live alone. It was just me, and the knife, and the empty chair. And the part of me that did all of this, the part of me that was not me, the part of me that was winning. 2 nights ago, I was so tired. I wanted to fall asleep so bad. My eyes felt like they had sand in them. I knew I couldn't, but my body was so weak. My mind was so tired. I decided to set up the camera one more time. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping to finally see something. Maybe I just wanted to see what was going to kill me. I fell asleep with the camera on. My head hit the pillow. The footage started like before. Me, sleeping in the bed. My body was moving around. Then, slowly, I sat up. But this time, it was different. This time, my body didn't sit still. It got up and walked to my closet. It opened the closet door. It just stood there for a long time. And then the whispering started. It was low and raspy, like two pieces of sandpaper being rubbed together. It sounded like two people arguing. My body would whisper and then stop. Then it would whisper again, like it was fighting with someone. I couldn't hear what was being said, just the sound of the fight. Suddenly, my body backed away from the closet. It moved fast, like something had scared it. It slammed my head into the wall. Once, I saw my head hit the wall hard, then again, twice, and then one more time, a third time. I watched myself on the video. My body was just a doll being hit. My head hit the wall hard. My body shook. Then, my body turned around. It looked at the camera, and it spoke, out loud. The voice was deep and full of ice. It was not my voice. It was a voice that belonged to a cold, empty place. "He's almost gone," it said. The words were slow and hard. Just a few more nights. It was my mouth saying the words. But it was not my voice. It was the voice of the other me. My body just stood there for a second, and then it went back to bed. It climbed in and laid down, and the video ended. I watched that video 5 times. I was trying to find something, a mistake, a trick, a way for me to escape. But there was nothing. Just me, and the other me, winning the fight, getting ready to take over for good. Last night, I was so tired. I was sitting on my couch. I just closed my eyes for a second. I told myself it was just a little rest, just a small break from the world. I must have fallen asleep, just for a moment. And when I opened my eyes, the world was different. There was a mirror in front of me. I didn't recognize it. It wasn't mine. And in the reflection, my face was there. My eyes looked so tired. My cheeks were hollow. Then my face smiled, but my eyes didn't. My mouth turned up at the corners, but my face was still full of fear, a deep, frozen fear. And that's when I knew. He was here, and I was gone. And now I have to stay awake forever. I was supposed to be there for just 2 nights. It was a simple job, really, an easy one. The ad said, house sitting, $900 in cash, no pets, no visitors, just keep the house company. I was broke. I was tired of sleeping on my friend's couch. The money sounded good, so I took the job without thinking too hard about it. I just wanted to get paid. The house was far away, way out in Wyoming, up a long, empty road that was more dirt than rock. The road went on and on. It was hot and the air was thin. There were no other cars. My phone had no service. The signal just died. It was just me and my old car and the sun beating down. Finally, I saw the house. It was huge, 2 stories tall. It looked old. It had a porch with a wide roof, big windows. But it also looked tired, like it had been there for a very, very long time, and no one had cared about it for a while. It didn't look broken or falling apart, just forgotten, like a toy left on a shelf. The woman who gave me the keys was nice. She met me at a gas station far away. She was in a hurry. She just said the owners were traveling overseas. She told me they had no plans to come back anytime soon. Then she drove off. Inside, the house was clean. Very, very clean. The floor had no dust. The air smelled of old wood. The furniture was big and heavy. It felt like it was from another time. It was all very dark. There were white sheets over all the mirrors. Every single one. I didn't get why. The drawers in the kitchen were full of forks and knives. They looked new, like they had never been used. The beds were made. The blankets were folded just right. But they didn't look slept in. It was a strange feeling, like the house was all ready for people, but they just never showed up. I walked up the big staircase. Each step made a loud noise, a deep creaking sound. The house moaned under my feet. It was the sound of a very old thing waking up. It felt like the house was surprised I was there, like it thought it was alone. I found a shortwave radio in a small room. It was old and covered in dust. Next to it were stacks of books. They were all about weird things. Books about how to stuff dead animals. Books about building secret rooms in case of war. And books about living far from other people. It was all strange, but it didn't scare me. I just thought the owners were a little bit odd. I told myself it was just 2 days. I could handle it. The money was worth it. But then the sun went down. The house got dark. Very dark. The windows were like black mirrors. The quiet was a real thing. It was so quiet I could hear the blood moving in my ears. Around 1 in the morning, I heard a sound. A quiet sound. The latch on the front door clicked, like someone had just turned it. I sat up in bed very fast. My heart started to beat hard. Bang, bang, bang. I knew I hadn't locked the door. I just forgot. I was so tired when I came in. The air in the room was cold, a dry kind of cold, not like a winter cold, but like a desert cold. I listened. I held my breath. I wanted to hear a footstep, or breathing, but there was nothing, no sound at all. The house was dead quiet again. After a long time, I got up. I felt for the fire poker next to the fireplace in my room. My hand was shaking a little bit. I held the poker tight. It was heavy and cold. I walked down the stairs. Each step creaked loud. I wished I could walk without making a sound. When I got to the bottom, I saw the front door. It was closed. It was locked. The door was shut tight, just like it should have been. But the small rug, the mat that was supposed to be right in front of the door, was a little bit moved. It wasn't where I left it. It was pushed inside the house, just a few inches. I stood there with the fire poker. I waited. I didn't move for what felt like forever. Just the sound of the refrigerator in the kitchen. A low hum, and the bang, bang, bang of my own heart. I finally locked the door. I pushed the mat back where it was. I went back upstairs. I didn't sleep at all. I just sat up in bed, listening. The next morning I felt tired. I looked out the window. My window. I saw the front yard, the big empty field. It was full of dry yellow grass. And in the middle of the field, there was something. I had to look twice to be sure. A red plastic chair, just sitting there. It looked like a child's chair. I know it wasn't there before. I would have seen it. It was too red to miss. It was sitting all by itself. Just a single red chair, about 100 feet from the house. It was looking at the house, like it was waiting for someone to sit in it. I stood there for a long time. My coffee got cold. I just stared at the red chair. It was so strange, so out of place. It made no sense at all. Finally, I put my shoes on. I walked outside. The grass crunched under my feet. The air felt the same as yesterday, just dry and hot. I walked up to the chair. I kicked it over. I didn't think about it. I just wanted it to be gone. I wanted the chair to not be there anymore. I wanted it to be a dream. I left it on its side and went back inside. I tried to forget about it. I didn't think I would be able to. That night, I made sure the front door was locked. I went to bed early. I was so tired from the night before. I was so tired I couldn't move, but I still couldn't sleep. I was just lying there watching the darkness. Then I heard it. A quiet knock. It came from the wall. I sat up. My eyes were wide. I listened harder than I had ever listened. It wasn't a knock on the front door. It wasn't the window. It was the wall next to my bed. It went with knocks. Few little taps. Quiet, but there. Then it stopped. I held my breath again. I waited for it to happen again. A few minutes went by. The house was quiet. I thought I had imagined it. Then it happened again. Knocks. 4 taps. The exact same sound. The sound felt close, like someone was right on the other side of the wall. I got out of bed. I put my ear right up to the wall. It was cold. I couldn't hear anything, just the quiet sound of the house, the deep silence. I didn't sleep at all. I just waited for the taps, but they didn't come again. I had never been so tired. I felt like I had been running for a long time. In the morning, I went to the window again. I looked out at the field, and there they were. Not just one chair, 2 chairs, a red one and a blue one. They were right next to each other. They were facing each other too, like 2 people were having a talk in the middle of the grass. I didn't touch them this time. I was scared to. I just watched them from the window. I walked all the way around the outside of the house. I looked for footprints. I looked for tire marks, but the grass was dry and hard. Nothing was there. I tried to call the number the woman gave me. I found the little piece of paper in my pocket. I had no service. So I walked back to my car. I got in. I put the keys in the little hole. The car didn't make a sound. The lights didn't come on. Nothing. The battery was dead. My car was broken. I had to walk inside the house again. I felt very scared. I was stuck here. I was alone here. I went back to the little room, the one with the old books. I found the shortwave radio. I turned it on. The static was so loud. It was like a million little bees. I turned the dial slowly, left and right, just trying to find a voice. I heard some music for a bit, and some voices that were not clear. Then, just for a moment, I heard a voice that was clear. It was a man's voice. It was very quiet, like a whisper. He was just saying a few words. "Don't open the basement." That's all he said. Then it was static again. I sat there for a long time. I had no idea there was a basement. My heart was beating fast. My hands were shaking. I wanted to get out of the house, but I couldn't. I was stuck here. That night, I went looking for the basement. I felt like I had to find it. I searched every room. I looked behind doors. I moved furniture. I finally found it in the pantry. It was a small room off the kitchen. There was a trap door on the floor. It was made of thick wood. It had a metal ring, and it was bolted shut from the outside, from the pantry. I stood there looking at it for what felt like an hour. Who bolts a door like that? Who locks a basement door from the outside, from inside the house? I didn't open it. I was too afraid. I went to bed instead. I took one of the knives from the kitchen. It was heavy. I put it under my pillow. But I didn't sleep. The thought of that bolted door was stuck in my head. I just lay there. I watched the clock on the wall, the little red numbers, 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m. At 4:13 a.m., I heard a sound. It was under the floor. It was a slow sound, a scraping sound, like someone was dragging a piece of metal across the wood. It was coming from right under my feet. It was coming from the basement. The sound was very slow, very steady, like someone was taking their time. I was frozen. I couldn't move. The knife under my pillow felt useless. The sound went on for a long time. It scraped and scraped. I was so scared. When the sun came up, I jumped out of bed. I felt like I was losing my mind. I stuffed a few things into my bag. I grabbed the car keys. I had to get out. I ran outside to my car. I put the key in the door. I opened it fast. I sat in the driver's seat. I put the key in the hole. It was still dead. Nothing. I felt my blood go cold. I felt like I was going to throw up. And then I saw it. I had to look. I couldn't stop myself. There were 3 chairs now. Not 2. Not 1. 3. A red one, a blue one, and a yellow one. They were all in the field, and they were all facing the house. All 3 of them. And on my windshield there was a small piece of paper. A note. I picked it up. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold it. It was a short note. It was handwritten. The handwriting was neat. It said, "We're waiting." That's all it said. "We're waiting." I ran back to the house. I was breathing so hard it hurt. I slammed the front door shut. I locked it. I locked every window. I ran to the kitchen. I ran to the pantry. I looked at the trap door. It was open. The wood door was wide open. The bolt was slid to the side. Darkness was coming out of it. The darkness smelled cold. I stood there. I couldn't move. I just looked at the open door. I finally walked to the door. I looked down. It wasn't dark down there. There were lights. A whole hallway was lit up. I saw pictures on the walls. I started walking down the stairs. The walls were covered in photos, hundreds of them, and every single photo was of me. I saw a picture of me sleeping. I saw a picture of me brushing my teeth, a picture of me sitting at the window, a picture of me in my car. They were all taken over the past 2 days. In this house, sticky notes were all over the pictures. I read a few of them. Still jumpy, one said. Hasn't seen the cameras. Should crack soon. I was so scared I felt like I was going to fall. My knees were weak. I kept walking down the hall. I got to a room at the end. The door had words on it. It said, "Exit. Observers only." I pushed the door open. There was a table in the middle of the room, and 4 chairs around the table, just like the ones outside. On the table was a small TV screen, a monitor, and the screen was playing live video of the house, of my room, of the kitchen, of the field, and a new one, a video of the inside of my car. They had been watching me the whole time, since the very beginning. I grabbed the fire poker. I swung it as hard as I could. I hit the screen. The screen broke into a million little pieces. Glass went everywhere. I ran out of the room. I ran up the stairs. I had to get out. I tried the front door. It was locked from the outside. I tried the windows. They were locked too. There was no way out. The house wasn't haunted. It wasn't cursed. It was a trap. They made it for me. They brought me here to watch me. I spent the last night in a chair on the porch. I was holding the fire poker. I was too tired to be scared anymore. I was just empty, and I saw the red chair. It was back on the porch, right next to me. I sat in it. I just waited for the sun to come up. I was so tired. And when the sun started to come up, I heard the sound of the front door. It clicked. The door opened slowly. The sound was soft. A man walked in. He was wearing a white suit. A hazmat suit. I couldn't see his face. He had a glass mask over his face. 4 other people in the same suits walked in behind him. One of them had a small tablet in his hands. One had a quiet gun. The man in the front looked at me. He nodded a little bit. "Test concluded," he said. "Control stable. No breach." They just walked past me. They didn't even look at me for long. One of them whispered to another one. I heard it. I didn't think he wanted me to. "Number 12 handled it better than 11, he said. I didn't fight them. I didn't say anything. I was just tired. They put a black piece of cloth over my eyes. It was dark. They drove me somewhere. I don't know how long it took. They took the blindfold off. I was sitting on a bench at a bus stop. My wallet was in my pocket. It was full of money, the $900, and a little more. And there was a note. It said, "You lived." That's more than most. I don't know who they were. I don't know why they chose me. But sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night. I think I am still in that house. I think I never left. And outside my apartment window now, there's a single red chair.